God gave me a revelation that I know is going to be incredibly controversial, and so before you decide to debate me on it, please go to God in prayer for yourself. In Revelations 12, verses 1 through 6, we learn of a great sign that appears in the sky. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a garland of 12 stars around her head. Throughout Scripture, we see how Jesus refers to his church as his bride, and there's a reason why this woman isn't represented as that, a woman. This is the explanation. The woman is a representation of God's bride, and the 12 stars around her head represent the 12 tribes of Israel. And while we're all God's people, he makes it very clear in Scripture that his chosen people are the Israelites, hence why they have that place of honor as the garland of stars around her head. In verse 5, we see how the woman gave birth to a male child who was caught up to heaven and sat at God's throne. This is Jesus Christ. Verse 6 tells us how the woman fled into the wilderness and God prepared a place of safety for her. Please recall the prophetic dream that I shared with you all about a man who led me to a place of safety. Now this is a controversy. Throughout the centuries, a lot of people have harped on a pre-tribulation rapture because they've seen signs, visions, and dreams indicating that God's people will be brought out and saved from the wrath of the Antichrist. However, I'm here to tell you today that there is no pre-tribulation rapture. However, there is going to be a regathering of God's people. Contrary to popular belief, Satan is actually not in hell. He's currently in the second heavens, in the skies above us. And in the last days, he will actually be cast down to earth, as well as 1/3 of the angels who he deceived when trying to revolt against God. And when that happens, he will then begin to face and try to torment God's people. However, Scripture is clear that God will bring some of us out to a place of safety in order to avoid his wrath. The interesting thing about God is that he shows a lot of repetition. The same way that God sent angels in order to bring Lot out of Sodom and Gomorrah and save him before the destruction is the same way in the end times. God will actually send his angels to bring out his people right before the destruction begins to hit. Verses 14 to 16 show us that the dragon will attempt to go after the woman. However, he will be unsuccessful because she will in fact make it into the wilderness. And in his anger, he decides to turn and face her offspring, those who keep God's commandments and believe in the true Jesus Christ. This is the remnant, and these are the end time saints who will unfortunately have to go through the tribulation. The best thing for us in these end times is to live righteously. By God's grace, we will all make it into the wilderness. Unfortunately, through Scripture, we know this will not be the case. But don't be dismayed. As long as you have Jesus, you will be victorious in the end. Be blessed.